Good morning and welcome back, everyone, to our deep dive session, part one with GPB and NASA. As you can see, we are back in our virtual conference room and we are ready to deep dive into today's learning. Before I turn over a few housekeeping items, please note everyone is in listen only mode. Therefore, you will not be able to use your mic at this time. However, please type in your responses in the chat box. There is a featured as well as a My Questions tab. Please note that there is a 10 to 15-second delay overall. Last point, all of today's materials will be uploaded to our bit.ly link available on our website. All right, so let's get ready to dive in. Please stand by for GPB.
Thank you so much, Don. Good morning. I am going to be sharing with you this morning some of the early learning resources that are available for family engagement. Family and community learning will be one of the many topics that we will discuss very briefly this morning. All right, so Georgia Public Broadcasting is one of the 14 public media stations that were provided the grant for Ready to Learn, which is powered by corporate public broadcasting and public broadcasting system, PBS Kids. And we joined 16 other public media stations doing our work with family engagement, through community engagement, to help the youngest learners in the highest needs communities. Ready to Learn grant supports the development of innovative educational television and digital media, and we are committed to helping those preschool and early elementary school children and their families with the general goal of promoting early learning and kindergarten readiness with a particular interest in reaching low-income children. This is the final year for the Ready to Learn grant initiative, and GPB will continue to work closely within our community, with our partners. We will support our children, our families, and most importantly, we will continue to support the educators, but this will be it. CCELM partners that we currently work with or collaborate with are the Georgia Department of Early Care and Learning, Georgia's statewide after school network, the Fountain Elementary School, which is in Clayton County School District, the Clayton County Library System, Little Ones Learning Center, and the Children's Museum of Atlanta. So we are going to watch a short video of testaments from those families that have already participated in our family and community Ready to Learn workshops. Let's watch.
When my dad said I was going to be going to the workshop, I got excited because I wanted to do experiments.
Why was Play-Doh your favorite part?
Um, texture for it.
Why?
New words. It's fun, and you get to do different things.
At Georgia Public Broadcasting, our mission is lifelong learning, and that starts with our youngest learners. It takes everyone working together to make sure kids are ready for school and ready to learn. That's why we are building community partnerships in high-needs areas of our state that focus on empowering families to take an active role in their children's learning. Using the research-based PBS Kids content and curriculum, the GPB education team is facilitating family workshops where anyone is welcome. Kids ages 3 through 8, along with caregivers, parents, siblings, or grandparents can come together to participate in interactive digital media and hands-on activities. Each workshop consists of 4 nights of learning that are designed to spark curiosity and encourage problem solving. For example, one of the activities for the Rough Ruffman workshop explores the properties of different types of mixtures. We learn and use vocabulary to engage in the science inquiry process by making observations, formulating questions, predicting, investigating, and sharing findings.
I want to achieve being more involved with the children. We did it for 4 weeks, and each week they were very excited to come to the program.
Isaac's been really excited about coming here. Every day he comes on talking about it, so he's just ready for the next day.
We're there, we're experiencing it with him, we're getting his knowledge that he's getting, and we're learning as well. If we are not involved in his life as parents and in the school or even in the community, we're not going to know anything about his future. and we want the best for his future.
She was scared, nervous to come the first day. I was like, come on, Tony, you got that thing today. She was like, no, I don't want to go, Mommy. I don't want to go. And it was the best time of her life. My favorite part was interacting with her, interacting with the people, watching her smile, having a good time.
If we show them that we're interested in them learning, they will want to learn. It's something that's very new to me, but is extraordinary. They were very involved. They got the children involved with singing and different type of things like that. So it was beyond my expectations.
I think they learned a lot, especially with the vocabulary. They put it towards their homework, they put it towards their classwork, they put it towards everything now, and I see a complete change in my kids.
There are not a lot of programs out there for a one-on-one interactions that you can spend that quality time with your child so that you know that your child will be receiving the best education.
Our call to action is to continue engaging families. We want to make the Ready to Learn initiative accessible to all educators and families throughout the state of Georgia.
I would definitely do the workshop because you can learn a lot from it and you can bring your family along.
Thank you so much. The family and community learning workshops are facilitated by our early learning specialist, Ashley Payton. And although the theme for this presentation is Cat in the Hat, there are three other family and community learning workshops that are Molly of Denali, Ready Jet Go, the Rough Ruffman Show. All of those are a part of the family and community workshops, as well as the other resources. These workshops are held once a week for 4 consecutive weeks. And we choose a location which is located within our Clayton County District or Forest Park, Georgia. So they might be either held at the Forest Park Library, Fountain Elementary School, Little Ones Learning Center. And these workshops might be facilitated either by GPB Early Learning Specialists or Children's Museum of Atlanta. All right, so I'd like to look at some of the other resources that are available through Ready to Learn. As I've already stated, Molly of Denali is one of the characters that we use to base the curriculum for family and community learning with the Ready to Learn grant. Molly of Denali character is based on the informational text. So she is the first Alaska Native character from PBS Kids, and we use this character to help us to engage families and teach about informational text. The Rough Ruffman Show, of course, is targeted for those kids that are 4 to 8 years old. And this is the character that we use to inquire for science inquiry skills and learning about core science concepts. And then, of course, there's the Cat in the Hat, who knows a lot about that. And the Cat in the Hat is targeted for those children that are 3 to 5 years old, and it's for math concepts. So we talk a lot about sorting and adding numbers and all of those particular math concepts. And finally, Ready Jet Go is targeted for those children that are ages 4 to 8 years old. And Ready Jet Go is science and engineering concepts as well. Okay. All right. PBS Kids provided a facilitator's guide for each and every one of the characters, or for each and every curriculum for family and community workshops. And so I'm going to share with you just one of the Cat in the Hat facilitators guides, just so that you'll know what it looks like. So we don't just go into the workshops just blind. We're able to take each one of these concepts that are presented by PBS Kids, and we are provided the curriculum and are able to engage our family. So you'll see here with the table of contents for Cat in the Hat as an example, we have sorting all sorts of things, where we do play ball, going, and building bridges. So all of these are focused on mathematics and engineering. All right, so this is just an example of the curriculum guide or the facilitator's guide. Each one has an opportunity for the families to eat, explore, play, and share. So each FCL starts off with us eating together. And then we show an episode from PBS Kids. We read a book. that is related to the concept that will be presented for the night. We play together with the family so that they will be able to create something through craft. So for instance, if we're doing building bridges, they build a bridge, and each one of the families determine, or we help them to determine which bridge will allow their little crafts that they make to go across the bridge the fastest, or which can go the longest. And so we explore in those areas. And then we share out with each one of the families, and they share with one another. They take that craft home. But for now, due to COVID-19, we've been doing these FCLs virtually. So they're at home and they're engaging with us via Zoom. All right. The other family engagement programs that are available through the Ready to Learn grant are the summer camps, Happy Hour with GPB, and professional learning for educators. So we're going to take a quick look at the summer camp that was presented by GPB.
Space Challenge. They do different activities.
Start it over.
Ready Jet Go Camp is bringing science to children in the summertime.
I love PBS Kids because we learn new things. We do fun activities. It's the awesome camp in the whole universe.
The Ready Jet Go Camp is one of the camp series that the Ready to Learn initiative has launched, with the learning focus on Earth and space science for children ages 5 to 8 years old. Children are able to still engage in educational and enriching activities while having fun, and we are closing up that gap during the summer learning.
Camp is a great way to bring in these experiences for kids. You want to just really make sure that they're still learning over the summer, and especially in fun and creative ways like we're doing here.
Every day they have a new mission to solve. They watch PBS Kids shows that correspond with each mission. We have digital adventure time. The kids get to play a digital game on pbskids.org or the PBS Kids app that corresponds with the activities. We have Space Factory time where they get to work on their spacecraft. And the last thing that we do is the Team Space Challenge. They do different activities that correspond with each mission. They've been thinking and acting like engineers and scientists. GPB decided to partner with Fountain Elementary School because they're actually one of our partners for the Community Collaborative Early Learning Media Initiative. We have a large base of families that live in this community and children that attend this school.
I'm here today with my daughter. I think with the presence of a parent or both parents, if they see that their education is important to their family, like if it's important to my parents, then it's important to me. And the camp here is doing a great job with reaching out to the community and making sure that there's opportunity for furthering education in science, math, technology, engineering is available outside of just the normal school schedule. We want our children to enjoy learning and make it a part of their everyday life.
As a parent myself, I think it's really cool for kids to come and participate in these kinds of programs. There are a lot of resources that can engage your children and combine 21st century skills with technology and STEM activities, really tying in what the teachers are doing in school and making the fun really relevant to what they're doing and what they're learning.
We're able to offer these resources to families free of charge, and they are bringing home this information. So when they get ready to go back to school, they are ready, and they have some great concepts already working in their minds that they can contribute to their classrooms.
All right. Happy Hour with GPB is sponsored by GPB, and we choose a PBS Kids app. And the apps are, of course, related to a core curriculum area. So for instance, I'm going to just show you very quickly. The PBS Kids apps are located at pbskids.org in the games, and all of them are in subgroups according to the areas or the content areas. So for instance, if I am hosting a reading app, I may use the Super Y game or app to help me to engage parents in understanding the importance of extending learning through apps. All right, and so these happy hours are held for 1 hour, and they're held right now virtually. Okay. And finally, if you're asking, how do I host a family and community learning workshop in my school district or in my library or in my learning agency? We provide professional learning for educators through EdCamp, but we also provide professional learning for educators through Playful Learning for Educators, which is a train the trainer model where we provide the facilitator's guide, how to implement the facilitator's guide, how to engage families, retention and recruitment, marketing. All of those areas are a part of our training for family engagement programs. Of course, we have the Ready to Learn blog, family resources, and games. So family resources are located at the PBS Learning Media webpage, which includes Molly of Denali, Ruff Ruffman, Eleanor Wonders, Play and Learn Science, which is one of the family and community learning workshops, science crafts for kids, and they include games and printables and videos and all sorts of resources to extend learning beyond the family and community workshops, which are facilitated by GPB. Also at the PBS Learning Media, you'll be able to find all sorts of family activities which are based on the characters of PBS Kids. All right. If you'd like more information about any of the family and community learning workshops, please feel free to reach out to myself or the early learning specialist for GPB, who is Ashley Payton. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mike, who is going to share with you some of the other learning resources that are offered.
My name is Michael Kenlin. I'm an education specialist with Georgia Public Broadcasting, along with my colleague Tracy Wiley. We share sort of the state of Georgia, and I usually do the southern half of the state of Georgia, and my colleague Tracy does the northern half of the state of Georgia. But in this brave new world now, we are working together to offer virtual professional development for teachers, but what you'll find is a resource that's also available for parents.
We met Plum. Do you remember Plum? Yeah. And Plum showed us some animals that live in the city.
Okay, so in the trays, guys, are the headphones. Okay.
I have this set up so you'll work in pairs together at one.
We went on like PBS Learning Media, and we went through a bunch of sources and videos, and we answered some questions on them.
It's pretty easy to use. Today's generation being a technology generation, I think these lessons holds their interest a lot more.
They were engaged. I didn't see anybody off task.
I like learning digitally. I think it helps me learn more.
It definitely helped me understand more.
The legal side, I said it was legal before.
These lessons that PBS offers allow us teachers to give each kid an individualized learning opportunity. Moving on at their own pace is something that's very difficult for them to do when it's a direct instruction model.
My class is made up of 22 students. About half of them are either ELLs or students with needs.
What is another word? It was a word we once.
Media increases the level of accessibility to the content that we're trying to teach. I think it really helps students that aren't understanding the language as well, because it has that visual that ties in with the language.
I feel like it helps me a lot more because I'm a visual learner, and then I can also read because they have transcripts, and then I can write notes as I go along.
It allows the teachers to reach every kid at their level, at their place.
So it's good if you can have a mix of different kinds of media.
Every year has a dip, right? The video of the atmospheric CO2 concentration was amazing. They were looking at the numbers, looking at the levels, and it was accessible to everybody. It's super important to me as a teacher to have these kinds of resources available. It's just one of the more engaging strategies that I know to make the data relevant and interesting to them.
And this is something that's just not possible for them to do otherwise. I can't imagine teaching without media.
The first time that I let my kids go off on their own, you could hear a pin drop in my room. They were so incredibly engaged. It was mind-blowing.
Fantastic. So the resource that they're discussing, and I think you saw Dr. Kim discuss this a little bit, is what is known as PBS Learning Media. And if you look, let's see if I can turn on my pointer for you. Up at the top, your URL, pbslearningmedia.org. And this is a free resource available to educators, students, and parents. A lot of folks don't know about this. It is typically used by teachers and then delivered to students, but it is also available to parents. You'll notice at the top right, there's a sign in and sign up button. But without even signing in, I'm able to access all of these resources. So I'll give you a brief navigation of how this resource works, and then I'll show you some of the key points as to how to find some of the best stuff available, which as parents, you can access and utilize at home for virtual learning. So general navigation, you have your sign up button here. I'll sign in just a moment, but a point to make is you can use Google to sign in if you have a Google account. You can use Facebook, or you can just use an email. Teachers might not be aware that if they have Google Classroom as a service they utilize, that they can do what's called a single sign-on, where they can just click through their Google account and sign up. And they can also sign their students up as well. Next to your sign-in button is a simple way of searching. You can type in any number of standards-based keywords, and it will begin to auto-populate. A lot of people like this. It gives them a little bit more agency, right? Another way of looking through the content is this blue bar, which they might call the browse bar. You could browse by your standards, your grades, or your subject. Particularly if you deal with younger learners, the grade band browse is pretty good for early learning or pre-K. We think it works less well for older learners, and in that sense, we recommend the subject browse. So you can look at all major content areas. You'll see them in colored writing, and then subtopics underneath. So you can quickly browse for some of the major topics like US history or high school algebra, right? Additionally, if you scroll down, a key factor in PBS Learning Media is their collections. And so they start to highlight some of the content that falls under these collections for all major content areas. And they change these out every so often, maybe every week or every 2 weeks. So I always recommend if you come here that you just sort of pause, take a breath, and then look and see if there's anything that strikes your eye, right? And you'll notice this is timely content because we have media about about women's suffrage, but also media about 9/11. And then of course, this goes all the way down to Cat in the Hat. So what's great is that it doesn't just cover young learners, it covers everybody all the way up to near college age. And if you don't see what you want, they also have PE off to the side there. If you continue scrolling down, you'll also have some more progressive content like dealing with identity and race, some events on professional learning there. And then all the way at the bottom, they offer some of their collections. My favorite aspect, and I'll show you how to find these. So PBS organizes much of its content by either the station that's producing it, like us, GPB, a state affiliate, but also by the show or the documentary under which that content is a part. So if you're a little bit of a history nerd like myself, you might know Ken Burns, but as Dr. Kim was explaining Molly of Denali, what you saw is a show, but so is Sesame Street and Curious George, Nova, a science series. So if you've seen it on PBS, it's likely a collection on PBS Learning Media. And so if we wanted to poke around a little bit, the subject browse is my favorite way to do that really quickly. You can just click the down arrow, and I might choose science as a general topic. And then I get every piece of science material available, which is a lot. They organize it, videos up front. Everybody loves a good video. They'll show you a few videos, then they'll truncate that menu. You can always expand it here. Then they'll show you interactive lessons. In the video we just watched, you may have seen a lot of video interactive lessons on students' computers. I'll show you how to find more of those. Again, that menu is truncated, and then you get more media. If you just want a specific type of media, this blue bar at the top is how you filter. If we have, 10,000 pieces of content, that's probably too much, right? So I would instead filter by my grade level by just clicking a specific number of grades. And then I filter by media type to the right. And if I just want videos, I just get videos. Oh, it doesn't seem to want to show me any videos. Interesting. Here, I'll expand this. There we go. So then I just get videos for, 2 through middle school. A simple way to look at your videos, they'll show you how long the video is off to the right. And then they'll even see in the bottom right-hand corner whether or not you have support materials. And those are things like vocabulary lists or discussion questions. When you find a video that you like, you can simply click on it, stream from here. Other videos that are similar are off to the right. And then a couple other features. If you wanted to download this video, sometimes that's available in the download button to the bottom right. If you're logged in, you'll see the standards that correlate for the Georgia GSE, and there are your support materials. So something simple, just a little bit of a link to more information and some discussion questions. If you want to utilize other features like saving or distributing through Google Classroom, you'd need to log in. So I'll do that. I'll sign in at the top right, and I'm going to sign in with my email. Oh, I got it right the first time, aren't I lucky? So now this gets really good. Make sure my little bubble's on. There we go. Now my standards are all correlated to the GSE. For teachers, this is critical. Teachers don't have to go find the standards that they would want to put in their lesson plans. They've already auto-populated. Additionally, if I want to save this for later, I can just click favorite. And up here, you'll notice now that's my name rather than sign in. And there's a little favorites dashboard piece. And that's where all of these will go when you click favorite. Additionally, you can put everything into PBS Learning, into Google Classroom. And if you're on Google, it will automatically show your class and you can populate it into your class, and it syncs very simply. So a really quick way to grab stuff is just using your subject browse. You could also use your topics inside of your subject browse. Additionally, most people, to have a little bit more control, will search for something in their standards, like fractions, say. The results are similar, but now all of your filters are off to the left. Again, if I wanted to filter, I would just click on a number of grades. It'll populate those grades, and then I would choose my media type. Again, I could choose something like video. You have additional control here. You can choose more than one type of media. So I also included an interactive lesson filter there. So I've got videos, but I also have interactives. You can see off to the right if support materials are available. And if I click on one of these interactives, these are fantastic. I'll launch this for you. Hopefully, okay, great. It should pop up in another tab. So you saw some of these on the PBS Learning video. At home, this would be very simple for you to utilize with students. You could just ask them to go to this URL, and what they get when they're here is sort of a self-guided interactive lesson. So the menu at the top left has all the different pieces of content that you could assign, sort of like mini chapters or topics, a glossary so that they can understand all the major terms, even with some minor drawings. And then anything that they do inside the interactive will stay in this little my work area. So you could say, read the introduction on page 1, watch the video on page 2, go through the vocab on page 3, and then answer the question on page 4. And when they submit and save, it goes into my work and it stays there for later. So a great way to have kids process and as the video said, work at their own pace rather than just being assigned. So those are interactive lessons. There's quite a few of those. They're fantastic resource. If I hit my back button, another way to find these, kind of like a little secret way of finding these, is if I just go up to my search bar and I don't search for anything, I just hit the return key. Oh, let's see, let me clear that out really quickly. I'll go back to my home page, go to my search bar, hit the return key, and I get everything that's in PBS Learning Media, and then I just filter for interactive lessons. There are almost 300 of them. So there's a lot of content there that you can use with your kids that's interactive. Another key that I wanted to point out is what are called collections. So just like I did a blank search and I filtered for interactives, I could also filter for collections. Now there are a lot of collections. So in this sense, you might want to begin filtering by subject, or as we did in our subject browse, you could choose a topic like US history. And in your media type, you could filter at the bottom here for collections. And it will only give you the collections for US history. So now I have things like a collection of nothing but the presidents. And I can keep scrolling down here and see other collections. Great documentary, African Americans, Many Rivers to Cross. Mercy Street is about the Civil War. And when you click on any of these collections, what you end up getting is all of them in one place. So rather than finding one good video that you like, you find many videos centrally located. You can also, if I can use this as a verb, you can favorite them. So you can save entire collections. And if you notice at the top, you'll see everything that's available. So I have 26 videos, 1 interactive, and 5 lesson plans. So all different types of media, all available in one place. And like I said earlier, I'll kind of wrap up on this note. If you think about shows that you like from PBS, those shows usually exist as collections. For instance, if I type in Sesame Street, there are 600 different resources available in the Sesame Street collection, and they're all broken down by different types of learning, which goes along with what Dr. Kim was saying earlier. Additionally, if I think about something, and we're happy to give you some tips on some great collections. We have resource lists for every major content area, and they list all sorts of great collections. Another one I think younger kids would absolutely love is called Full-Time Kid, with DIY activities broken down into simple categories, things that children can do at home like build crafts, but also design their own ninja costume. What kid doesn't want to do that? If you want something a little bit more organized and tactile, I would say Design Squad is a fantastic collection that has hands-on activities where kids test out different types of inquiry, and those are listed off to the side. And they literally build things, test them, and then figure out why they're working, why they're not working, and what's driving their function. And all of these come with simple materials and printouts for your kids to build stuff. One more I'll show you. Perhaps you're familiar with Nova, which is the most watched science series in the country. Nova itself has over 1,000 resources in its collection, but then it's broken down into several other collections. They have somewhere in the neighborhood of 9 or 10 other collections. And one of my favorites, and one that kids absolutely love, is called Gross Science. We're far enough away from lunch that I can show you some of this content. It is some of the most disgusting stuff, but kids absolutely love it, and it's all science-based. So you have everything from in-depth history content to simple fun games to interactives to in-depth documentaries to science-based learning in the real world. So a lot of resources here. They're all available for you to save. You can organize, you can share to Google Classroom, or simply you can just turn this site over to students and they can poke through it as well as parents. It's free and open. Signing up is free, but again, you don't even have to sign up to access. But if you want to use services like saving and organizing, then you would want to sign up. I think I will hold right there. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. My name was Michael Kenlin, and I will turn it over to my colleague, Tracy Wiley.
And you should be able to see my Bitmoji classroom. So as Mike mentioned, he and I are your education outreach specialists for the state of Georgia. And not only do we work creating content that we distribute to students, teachers, and families throughout the state, but we also sponsor a lot of content to support you. And so Mike and Kim both went into PBS Learning Media and to PBS Kids as an example of some of the content that we support. And these are wonderful resources, but they can be a little overwhelming because they are such a rich source of content, more than 100,000 pieces of individual educational content. As Mike mentioned, there are videos, there are lesson plans, there are audio files, documents, games. So it is, and Kim showed you some of the PBS Kids collection, which of course we're all familiar with having grown up with PBS. So thousands and thousands of resources. It can be a little, and things that we've done in partnership with the Georgia Department of Education is we've created a Georgia Home Classroom where we have taken some of these resources and I identified them as particularly useful for either teachers or, in this case, family engagement. So I want to go ahead and click on our Georgia Home Classroom and show you how we have incorporated PBS Learning Media and PBS Kids content into this home classroom, which is a continuously evolving resource. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this link in my Bitmoji Classroom and take you into our Georgia Home Classroom. Now, I saw that we did have a question in the chat about the partnership between GPB and the Georgia Department of Education and how this partnership would be growing throughout, these unprecedented times. That's a wonderful question because the answer is yes. The Georgia Home Classroom was originally launched in the spring. And since that time, we've been continuously adding new content, adjusting the content. So you'll see that currently, here I am in the Georgia Home Classroom, it says here that we have back to school resources and getting ready for K-3 guides. So those, of course, were launched over the summer when parents were in the classroom and how their kids might need to catch up in order to be prepared for, those foundational grade levels of kindergarten through 3rd grade. And so we created these back to school resources and these getting ready for K-3 guides. Now we'll be leaving this content on the Georgia Home Classroom website. But of course, as we're moving deeper into the school year, this content is going to change. And so this is going to be our new look that we are launching with in the next couple of days. Still has similar content, but of course, it's going to be continuously adapting. So I just want to go through a couple of these buttons and let you know what's available to you now and coming up. And then we'll go and explore a few of them. So first of all, this first stop here is called our K-12 Remote Learning Plans. This is the newest resource that's been launched just within the past few weeks. And this is really also the most in-depth resource that we have launched so far in this partnership. So these are actual learning plans. They are lesson plans. They are very in-depth. So this would be for engagement facilitators to help guide them through because it is more of a homeschool kind of a level. So I'm going to go ahead and click on those and show you what they look like just so you have an idea of what's available and see if it might be something that you could incorporate into your support system. So here they are, the K-12 remote learning plans. You'll see that they are for both teachers and parents. But again, because they are so in-depth, the parents may need a little bit of help to get started with them. They are, of course, aligned to our Georgia Standards of Excellence. They were designed specifically for this times. They are remote learning plans, so they are complete. The idea is really for teachers and parents to be able to use these with very little outside support. So they are really rich and complete resources. And they do involve both plugged and unplugged activities. So there will be embedded virtual content, like some of the videos and the games that we have showed you up till now. But there'll also be some simple, inexpensive, unplugged activities. Activity with very accessible, inexpensive resources. So you'll see as you scroll down that they are broken down into the core 4, ELA, math, science and social studies, as well as some fine arts and health and wellness. So we have expanded into some social and emotional areas as well. So if you click on, for instance, the first ELA, I'm just going to give you an idea of what they look like. So click on ELA Remote Learning Plans, and it will take you into the section where you can choose the grade level. So it is, as mentioned, K-12. So of course, in kindergarten, the big idea that is addressed in this remote learning lesson plan is phonological awareness. But as you get deeper into some of the, the middle school grades or the upper elementary grades, the big topics are going to expand and grow. So here in 4th grade, there are going to be details, examples in a story, language, comparing stories, writing about stories, and informational text, as Dr. Kim mentioned with the Molly of Denali. So it's going to get into a little bit, expand into high school. Then we really get into some more. I'm going to mention the 8th grade here. So this is going to be ELA plot elements and figurative language and symbolism. So you can see that each one of these goes into some area of ELA. And if you click on the actual lesson plan, it'll pull it up for you right here on the screen. This particular one, 9 pages long, but again, you don't necessarily have to follow the entire lesson plan. You can go in and pick and choose the content that's relevant to you. But here again, the big idea, phonological awareness. Here are those standards alignment. So it aligns to the 3 standards of kindergarten. The instructional design, so it gives the either parent or the teacher or the family engagement specialist some a script to use, some actual talking points, so helpful tips on presenting and reintroducing this lesson. And then as you scroll down, it will bring in some of the resources as well. So you can see, again, very, very rich, complex, full lesson plan for when you're looking for an entire instructional resources that you can use to present a big idea. So that is going to be the first area that we're looking at here. Again, those K through 12 remote learning plans that are available. Please let, when we get into our Q&A, please keep any one of these areas in mind. Happy to go more into detail, answer your questions about them if something really sparks your interest. But I'm going to move on into the next resource that is mentioned here on this page. And again, this page is coming soon. And so this next resource is called Let's Learn Georgia. This is supposed to be launched within the next few days, so either the end of this week, beginning of next week. And these are actually video lessons. So we invited Georgia teachers to give a lesson in a video presentation. These are aligned to the GSEs for K through 5. And when you click on these, it will take you into these various lesson plans. Now, again, this is not launched yet, but I'm going to show you an example. So here is one of the lesson plans. I won't play the entire thing, of course. It's about 30 minutes long, so it's a great lesson plan just for limited attention span, but enough to get some really rich content in there. So I'm just going to play a little bit of it so you can get an idea of the type of video here via this Georgia Home Classroom.
Hi there, my name is Mrs. Sides and I am a kindergarten teacher in Georgia. Today, I'm going to be teaching you all about how to write your own informational book. Now, you might be thinking, what is an informational book? That's a great question. So usually we read 2 different types of books. One type of book that we read is fiction. These are stories. They usually have characters or go on an adventure. And the type that we read is non-fiction. These are informational books. They teach us information. So that's the kind of book that we are going to write. We are going to be choosing a topic that we know a lot about, and we are going to be writing about it so that we can teach others. So,
all right, so that is an example of what's coming soon, and we chose that one because we've been speaking a lot about informational text today. So if your child is watching Molly of Denali, for instance, via PBS Kids, they may have more knowledge about informational text and what some of these nonfiction sources are. But if not, this is a great way to introduce them to what informational text is, have them write their own. And then, of course, you can refer them to Molly of Denali, which is on PBS Kids every day. So keep an eye out for these. It'll be coming soon. Again, for those parents who maybe their children are in school, in virtual school for an hour or 2 a day, and they're really looking for additional content that will help them fill in some of the gaps they feel that are happening with the remote learning. And so they have an additional teacher that can come into your home and give this extra lesson, give instruction. And another thing that we are constantly renewing are our broadcast schedules. So we mentioned there are a lot of resources here via the internet. Mike showed you PBS Learning Media, Kimberly showed you PBS Kids. Those are resources that are available online. And the reality, of course, is that not all of our children, regardless of grade or location, have access to online learning all the time throughout the whole school day. Maybe they don't have strong internet connections. Maybe they have to share with a sibling or a parent, and so they cannot always access that internet. But we know that 98% of Georgia households have access to PBS programming on television. And so PBS Kids has expanded their broadcast schedule for educational programming from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And that's so that children can, regardless of whether they have access to the internet, they can go to PBS Kids and they can find some content that is currently available to them. It's available from week to week. So this does change every week. So currently we are in the week of September 14th through September 18th. This is for pre-K through 3rd. So again, this is for PBS Kids, some of the littles. And you'll see that it has Monday through Friday. On the left here is the time. And at the top, you'll see that there are general discussion questions and conversation starters that parents or teachers or facilitators, family facilitators can use to actually talk about the programming that the child may have watched and get them to start thinking about it and processing the information. So I'm going to click on the discussion questions here just so you can see what they look like. And they're very simple. You can cut out these cards, have the children, maybe pick them themselves. And they're just like, did you like the program? Why or why not? You've just watched, the Kratt Brothers, or you've just watched Xavier Riddle and the Secret Museum. So what did you think? Did you like it? What was it scary, or was it exciting? What's one thing you'd like to learn more about? So maybe in this particular episode of Xavier Riddle, they talked about George Washington Carver, and maybe that piqued your interest about about his life or about botany. So what's something that you'd like to learn more about based on that program, and get your kids starting to think. And then maybe they'll be even interested to go into PBS Learning Media, their free kid account, and start searching for things they learned about on the television programming. So you'll see lots of ways that you can just take these really simple questions and start to build interest among your kids. And the parents, of course, give them some tools that can really help them. You'll see also these conversation starters, so similar, a little bit more in depth, but if you click on that link, it actually will take you to different conversations that are aligned to the program. So we know that each PBS Kids program has a main purpose. So Arthur really goes into social emotional learning and civics and community engagement and social studies, whereas the Cat in the Hat is more STEM learning and science. And so the questions, these discussion questions and conversation starters, are more in line with the topics of each individual program. So as you look down, you'll see there's all of our favorites: Clifford, Curious George, Cyber Chase, Daniel Tiger, and each one is going to be specific about them. So how did she try to find an answer? So what instructional text did she use? Was it a recipe book? Was it an encyclopedia? Was it NASA, going online to NASA and learning about space and aeronautics, or was it something she found at GPB? So where did she go to get that information? So each one of these, again, gives parents the opportunity to engage with their kids just after watching a program on television. So as you'll see, as you scroll down to each one of these, if your child was watching Daniel Tiger at 10 a.m., getting some social and emotional learning out of that, if you click on the embedded link here on Monday at 10 a.m. under Daniel Tiger, it will take you to PBS Learning Media, which is where Kim and Mike were, and it takes you to the whole collection about Daniel Tiger's neighborhood. And so there are more activities here: back to school, exploring the outdoors, social interactions. Whatever they explored in that episode, they can now go and play. So these are interactive games. So there are ways that they can take, again, what they've learned on television and find more fun things to do and more educational resources that they can expand upon. And you'll see it covers, all kinds of different programs and content areas. So there's Xavier Riddle with social studies. Here we have, again, Sesame Street and Daniel Tiger with social and emotional learning. We have the Wildcrats in science and math. We have Molly of Denali working on literacy, the Odd Squad doing math. So really so much educational fun content available to your children from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And again, you can refer your parents to this broadcast schedule that is updated every week. So those are the first three stops that we've done. The K through 12 remote learning plans, which again were deep dives into a particular area, a big idea, and a really complete lesson plan that can be used by parents or teachers or family engagement facilitators. We went a little bit over Let's Learn Georgia, which is coming soon, and these are video lessons that are given by a teacher of Georgia. So we saw that one teacher from Decatur, and she came in and started a lesson on informational text. So these lessons will be aligned to standards of education and of course aligned to our resources. This one aligns well to Molly of Denali. And then we looked at our broadcast schedules, which change every week, but they give parents and teachers and kids even an idea of what's playing from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. in terms of programming, educational programming that can help them learn and grow outside of synchronous learning on virtual or in-person learning. So the next level you'll see down here is the PBS Kids Digital Backpack, and that actually replaces the Back to School Guide. So it has some of the same content that was in the Back to School Guide, but just updates it because most of our kids are in school right now. Even if they've only been for a week, they're in that process. So parents are not as concerned about the prep, more like how do we deal with the school in session. That's great here and in these getting ready for K through 3 guides. So of course, our kids are already in K through 3, but they may not have the strong foundations that they need. And so parents can still use these getting ready for guides and try and build some of the skills and knowledge of their children while they're in school. So I'm gonna go ahead and click on this one, the getting ready for K through 3 guides, because I want to show you how simple these are. And it's another resource you can share with your parents just to help them as they're trying to support their kids in school. These are in both English and Spanish. A lot of our resources are multilingual, so these are in English and Spanish. And you'll see as you scroll down, there's a little video that just talks about the purpose of the Getting Ready for Guides. I think it's pretty evident, just again, trying to make sure our kids have the foundational skills and knowledge they need to thrive in whatever grade they're in right now. So we have Getting Ready for Kindergarten, and then we have it, of course, in in Spanish as well, Jardín, and then we've got first grade, second grade, and third grade. So I'm going to jump into third grade this time and just show you what it looks like up to this here. And this pull up just a PDF document. It's only 2 pages long. You made again in partnership with the Georgia Department of Education. And it's just saying, do you want to prepare for school year? But of course, preparation can be ongoing. And so the first section is on physical health and wellness. With a parent or caregiver support, your child who is in third grade, starting third grade, should be able to start understanding another person's thoughts, expectations, feelings, and intentions. They should be able to forgive and grant grace to other children who upset them. They should have at least one successful give and take friendship. They should be able to work successfully in a small group of peers. So this gives parents an idea of, how is my child doing in these social and emotional areas? And if they're having trouble with some of them, can I reach out to a teacher or other parents or a family engagement specialist and get some ideas about how I can help my child, with forgiving and granting grace, or with, the give and take of friendship. Or maybe you can refer your children to more Daniel Timer activities. Relationships, with characters on television is a way for them to develop these skills and watch these characters going through some of the challenges. You'll see here with ELA, it says with parent caregiver support, use words and phrases learned through conversations and books. So they should be reading alone, and you can also read to them. So again, just emphasizing the importance of repetition, reading, and books. They should be able to describe how characters respond to events in a story. So making sure that your children are doing these things, or at least prepared to do them. And as you scroll down, you'll see there's also math. They should be able to represent and solve problems involving addition and subtraction. They should be able to count to 1,000 by 2s, by 5s, by 10s. In science, they should be able to describe stars and discuss why the sun is not the largest star, even though it appears to be. So we're getting into some you can help them by referring them, for instance, to some NASA content that helps them describe stars and discuss why the sun is not the largest. I believe NASA is going to be talking about some of this perspective. So again, so many ways that different educational content can connect with each other. So that's another resource again that hopefully is available to you and you can use on a regular basis. And then the last thing I want to share with you all is this daily activity calendar for kids from these top buttons. And this is similar to the broadcast schedule, but it's a little bit more active because in this calendar here, let me get back to it in our active page. Here it is, the daily activity calendar. This just has one fun activity per day. So I mentioned this was yesterday's activity, explore water with ice towers. And when I clicked on this yesterday, I saw, okay, so this is, an activity, very, very simple. It involves food coloring or some liquid water color paints, water, and even hopefully their children would have some kind of food coloring or markers or something, Kool-Aid that they could use as a color and some water. Help your child fill some bowls with water, have them add the color, and then freeze them or stick them in the freezer and make ice sculptures. So it's just an opportunity, again, for them to explore, changes in matter from a liquid to a solid while they're playing. So very simple, unplugged activity that you can do with your kids, or kids can maybe even do on their own, honestly, at this point, working with, water and food coloring. They may make a mess, but there's certainly nothing dangerous or challenging. And then you can come back with those conversation starters, ask them what they learned. Today's activity, draw a picture of your family. If you click on that, it'll take you into today's activity. There's a little PDF that you can download, or you can just do it on, your own piece of paper. And it says, Daniel Tiger here, all families are different. Find what makes yours special. So again, that social and emotional learning of I am unique, I am special, and that self-value. All right, so that is our Georgia Home Classroom, the main points. The PBS Kids Digital Backpack is also a PDF that has all kinds of activities like pages for drawing and puzzles and explorations and bingo cards, those conversation starters. So when that is launched, that will be a large PDF that you can print off, or your parents can print off, or you can fill in virtually as well with these PDF manipulators. And then finally, before my last minutes here, I want to scroll down to underneath those 6 buttons within the Georgia Home Classroom and just show you that there are additional learning resources available to you. These were designed mostly for teachers. However, many of our parents are in this homeschool position, and as family engagement guides, these are certainly available to you as well. So these again are core 4 content areas where we have taken PBS Learning Media content or PBS Kids content or other free content such as from the Georgia Aquarium or Zoo Atlanta. And we have aligned them, excellence is aligned to a free piece of content in this guide here. So maybe a parent is feeling that their child is really struggling with a particular standard. They're having trouble with this concept of social studies or science. And so how can they help their child? So this is a place where you can refer your parents. All of these resources are open. There's no charge for any of them. They're open educational resources. And so you can refer your child to go into any of these areas. Now, these right here, this is what's coming up. So it says pre through first. I'm going to go to our current remote learning plan so you can see there's a lot more. So here's pre-K, kindergarten, all the way up through high school, content collections here. So regardless of the grade level, there are standards aligned content areas that are available. So I think I'll do 6th grade for this time. ELA, math, science, social studies, fine arts, health and wellness, and again, Spanish resources. I'm going to click on social studies this time, take you into what these additional resources look like. And you can see the curriculum map link will take you to the Department of Education's curriculum map. So again, that helps parents make those connections as they're trying to figure out, how can I fill in the gaps, help my students, my kids with this particular area. And you'll see the very first thing is SS6 CG1. So start from the beginning, number 1, what is democracy? Vote democracy. This is an activity with supporting documents. So it gives you a little summary of the activity, the skill that is present. And as you scroll down, you'll see that there are more than one resources, so parents can choose which resource is better for them. And then it goes into additional standards. SS6, E4, E7, and E10, we get into economics. Here's a video that talks about economic systems. Scroll down here, principles of specialization. Again, more economic standards. Market economies, gross domestic product. So all of these align to a standard. The links will take you directly to the game or the video or the lesson plan that this will help with. Here's an example of a Georgia Aquarium lesson plan. So we are also connecting teachers and parents and students to content that's free from other sources. And here, Geography of Canada. I know sometimes our 7th grade, world studies, have challenges finding content. So there's even content beyond Georgia. We of course sponsor content all over the world. So the PBS. So I am going to go back to our main page and just stop there and make sure that there's nothing else that I've missed here, but I believe that's the end of my time. So I'm going to go ahead and pause, and I believe at this point we will be going into questions and answers.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All I can say is wow, wow, wow. Every time I hear you presenting, it's like I get more information. I have like all these notes that I can do with my own children for, making sure they stay on track with their education. You mentioned a lot of different resources that they can use, and I want our family engagement coordinators to keep in mind that when we're talking about strategies, and as Tracy mentioned, tools so that they can use, the parents can use at home with their children. I mean, this is it. A lot of you mentioned your school parent compact, providing online academic links and resources. I mean, she mentioned a digital backpack, activity calendars, videos. So this is a wealth of information that you can use. Go back and talk to your principals, get your teachers together, and let them know that this is here and it's available to use free. Early childhood, pre-K through 12th grade. So thank you so much. So yes, we are ready to go into Q&A. I'm just so excited though, because it's like every time I hear you all, it's like, oh my gosh, this is fantastic. I want to start with Dr. Kimberly. So Mandy, if you would please help me to get her up, because Dr. Kim, hold on. Dr. Kim, it was mentioned about the GPB Happy Hour Professional Learning for Educators. So if you will, please talk about that and maybe how that could be utilized for building a staff capacity.
All right, certainly, Don. The Happy Hour and the Professional Learning for Educators are two separate professional learning opportunities. So Happy Hour can be adapted for building capacity with educators. And then the Professional Learning for Educators, which is playful learning for educators, is a professional learning entire day actually for building capacity for educators. I would like to add that we are an approved PL provider by DECAL. And so when we provide professional learning opportunities, whether it's EdCamp, Train the Trainer, we provide Sesame Street and Communities, which is adverse experiences for children, where we provide resources for educators to help with those adverse experiences in the classroom. We are able to give credit to those participants. And so because we have so many PL opportunities for early learning educators, Don, I'd like to encourage the viewers to please reach out to me personally via email at kmobley@gpb.org for more information, because some of the PLs have to be adapted to building capacity for educators, as well as giving the PL credit through DECAL. So yes, we do have PLs that are building capacity.
Great, outstanding. Michael, let's get Michael up. I know you guys talked about resources available in Spanish, other languages. Can you just kind of expand on that? Because of course, that's just really huge for us to meet the needs of our parents and to make sure that we are communicating with them in a language they understand. So can you expand upon your translations and materials that are available?
Sure, absolutely. So if you look into PBS Learning Media, often videos will be available in Spanish as well as English. There's also a filter in PBS Learning Media that allows you to find videos, especially that are just available or that are available in a Spanish translation. There are additionally, there are collections that we like to highlight that teach Spanish. We've actually made one called La Salsa. It's an older video series for younger learners. But so not only can you get some materials in Spanish, transcripts and the video, but you can also, there are also collections that teach Spanish language learning to multiple groups.
Wow, fantastic. Well, I want to scroll through. I think you guys answered mostly everything during your presentation. So again, job well done. Thank you, thank you. I see some, okay, thank you, Dr. Mobley. She's putting some information in there. So we're going to get ready and take a 10-minute break. We're doing really good on time. So I'm going to start our countdown and
do you mind if I mention something else before we go out?
Absolutely, please.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention one other thing, and Kim mentioned this in the chat, but I don't think we made it clear. Mike and I are available for free professional learning. So anyone out there, regardless of where you live in Georgia, feel free to contact us. We will support you either through training you on some of these resources that may have seemed a little overwhelming. So we train the trainer, of course, or we're happy to co-train with you and your parents. So please keep that in mind. Contact us. We are happy to set up, additional trainings like we've done today, but of course tailored to your needs. And in a virtual environment, go out there into your parents and help support them. And I did also want to mention one thing that I forgot, and that is that if anyone has, their parents have access to the World channel, which is about 60% of the house channel, and we have started programming for the older grades. So those are 6 through 12. So PBS Kids, of course, is the younger kids, but there is also free programming for the older children, and that does involve programming such as Nature and Nova and NASA, Ken Burns, the Origin of All Things, Civilization. So that kind of content that's for higher grades, we do have that available, and I'm happy to share that schedule. It is informal, it's just a Google Doc, but I'm happy to share that schedule as well with family engagement facilitators who are looking for older programming for kids on television.
Fantastic. Anyone else want to add anything? Okay, so you guys heard it. Free professional development. I said again, you guys know this is live, so they will certainly be calling you for sure. So thank you so much. Let's go ahead and go into our 10-minute break, and we will return at 10:20. Okay, welcome back, everyone. As we proceed, please remember to continue to type your questions into the Q&A box. Up next, we have NASA.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're excited to share more information with you about our NASA Family Science Learning Programs. I will be introducing my team here in just a second. But as Dawn mentioned, we're excited to answer your questions. So please continue to put them into the chat box, into the Q&A box, and we will do our best to answer them either via text and the answers there, or we'll do them live in the Q&A afterward, because we want to make sure we give you all the information that you need. So my name is Sarah Mitchell, and I'm here on behalf of the Astrophysics Education Team at NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. That's in Greenbelt, Maryland. And I'm also here with my teammates, who you can't see on screen with me, but you can see in this picture, Sarah Eierman and Christina Malott. This photo is from the Death Valley Dark Sky Festival in March, which was the last time we all saw each other in the same place at the same time. Our team sits with the scientists of the Astrophysics Science Division at NASA Goddard, and these are the folks who study the whole universe outside the solar system. So stars, black holes, galaxies, exoplanets, those planets that go around other stars, they do everything out there. And we consider our role to be kind of like translators. So we take all of the cool things that they're working on and we make them accessible and engaging and appropriate for different audiences, including students, parents, families, and the public. And our work is under the NASA Space Science Education Consortium, which is a group that brings NASA space science to a variety of audiences, including out-of-school time educators, college classrooms, public events, and a whole lot more. So I always like to set a few goals at the start of any presentation so you know what we're planning to cover and what we want you to leave with. So today we're hoping to boost your knowledge about bringing STEM, that's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, to a multi-generational whole family audience. So all ages, all working together. We're going to introduce you to some of the resources that we have developed at NASA to help you with this, and we're going to walk you through activities from those resources. We wish we could give you a hands-on experience during this presentation, but we'll be doing everything here kind of like thought exercises today. So if you can, have a pen and paper handy so you can jot down a few things while we take you through our activities so you can try them out the best way we can do digitally and without being able to give you any materials. So a couple of these slides might be familiar to those of you who joined us on the first, but I do want to start things off for anyone new by defining what I mean when I say family engagement during this session. There are a number of different ways we talk about parent involvement or family engagement, all of which are true and correct, but I want to make sure you know what I'm talking about when I use these words today. So I'm talking about something beyond working just with parents. I'm talking about working with whole families as a family. So I want to engage everyone in a family and get them working together the whole time we have them together. So no one is just standing back and watching. Everyone is hands-on and learning. I also define family very, very flexibly. This can be any combination of adults and children who do things together on a regular basis. So when I work with families, I'm thinking about not just parents, but also grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, friends, neighbors. They might just be people who are very important in our family's everyday lives, whether or not they're actually related. I'm also talking about a family engagement model that's not just about bringing members of a family together, but really helping them develop and practice skills that will help them learn together and grow together outside an event. This means developing their collaboration and their communication skills and kind of working with the quirks that families have. Every family is a little different and a little special. And so figuring out how to make things work for that family. And while I did say that this is more than just parent involvement, that's still a very important piece of family engagement. Adults need to know what they need to be able to do to sustain family learning and engagement and work with the kids afterwards. So for example, we want to make sure that adults leave our events and understand that it's okay not to have the answer to everything. We're used to thinking that adults have to be the expert and kids can ask questions and adults have to answer them, which as an adult is pretty terrifying. And so we want to make sure adults know how to kind of do the journey of answering questions and looking things up and doing science together outside an event. We also like to do continuity pieces like sending everyone home with we call it a science notebook that they can record data during the event, but also they can use it outside the event. They can jot down ideas, they can doodle, they can record information. So a nice place to continue engagement and give them a place to work together. So I'd like to really briefly start things out here by telling you a bit about some of the research that has really driven my interest in family engagement and helped us develop our programs and activities that we're sharing with you today. And this first slide here, this is pretty powerful stuff. Family involvement really helps kids throughout their entire development. So when you're talking about those early pre-K years, you're talking about literacy outcomes. So children whose parents read to them learn to recognize letters sooner and learn to read sooner than parents who are not involved in that. When you're talking about elementary school, it's about homework help, and so you're talking about better classroom performance. And when parents are involved, kids have better work habits. In the middle and high school level, families are helping with college preparation and academic success. So this is an age range where kids are making really important decisions about what they'd like to do in the future, whether that's about the classes they want to take or the careers they want to go into. And so the more parents are involved with all of that, the more likely they are to graduate from high school and also go to college. And what really blows me away about all of these outcomes is that they're fairly universally true. So they benefit children from different genders, ethnic backgrounds, economic backgrounds. And so it really shows how incredibly powerful parent involvement and family involvement can be in children's success. So I think that pretty well documents that getting families involved is important. But when we're talking about STEM, when we're talking about science and technology and engineering and math, we're also dealing with a lot of confidence issues. Many parents recognize that it's really important to do STEM activities with their kids, but they don't think that they know enough science or math or anything else to actually be doing them. Parents with less formal education are even less confident, and parents, again, think they need to have all the answers. They're the expert, and so this can be somewhat paralyzing when kids come with these STEM questions and adults don't know what to do with them or how to engage these kids. This is one of the big reasons that we want to help parents know that they don't need to know a lot about STEM to be engaged, and we want to equip them with some really basic collaboration, communication, research tools so that they know what they can do and it's not just a scary thing. So the research I'm highlighting today all has come from the Global Family Research Project, which Sarah, if you don't mind pasting the link in the announcements here on the side so everyone can click on it in their free time. I'm always happy to share my bibliography, but this is a fabulous website. I have no affiliation with this, but they are a group that shares studies and white papers and other things about family learning. They have a whole section on STEM, but they also have other things like literacy, social development. They have a lot of pandemic resources. That's, of course, growing as a field of research. I believe they have a newsletter you can subscribe to. They don't spam you, so I really enjoy that. But it helps me get regular updates and stay on top of the latest research in what's going on in family learning. So I wanted to make sure I shared this with all of you if you weren't familiar with it already. So what our team has really found looking at all of this research and also with our own experiences is that families kind of need professional development. So just like we're coming together today to become better family educators, parents and adults and families also need professional development to get better at what they do. This helps them learn and practice these whole family learning behaviors and strategies. This helps boost adults' confidence levels, and it helps families keep learning together even when they're outside of your events. So there's even some research about how to do this, which I've got here on this slide. So the first thing is really that our job when we're working with families is to support them and to focus on what they bring to the table. Every member of a family comes with their own lived experiences and skills and interests, and we should be appreciating those and valuing them and incorporating them into what we do so that they feel like everyone in the family is a positive contributor to what's going on. Parents in particular want to make sure that they're valued, and we want to make sure we value them, that we're not saying you don't know what you're doing, but rather let's build on what you already know and what you already do and incorporate your lived experience into all of this. You also want to get their feedback and know what they need and what their concerns are so that you're responsive to them. On this second point, you really want to communicate positively and frequently and build relationships. You want to be there for them. And when we were pilot testing our family programs at NASA Goddard, we forged really close relationships with the families that were coming on a regular basis. They started just coming to us for this event, but eventually we were hearing all about their lives and their vacations and what they'd been doing outside of our program. And we really built these great relationships, which also meant they could open up to us about their needs and about what was going on with them, and we could help them more. The third one here is actually the one that was the biggest surprise for us when we were doing our development. So running family programming, as you probably know, is really different than just doing programs for adults or kids, and working with a mixed age audience is always hard, whether it's an all kid mixed age or adults and kids especially. So we really encourage hiring or at least developing a really family friendly staff and tailoring everything to family needs. And this is really backed by research as well, that you have to make sure you're meeting families where they are and with what they need. It took us a fair amount of effort when it came to STEM content to find the right activities and approaches for such a broad audience. We were talking about everything from age 8 and up, everyone with different science backgrounds, and we were trying to meet them all where they were and keep them engaged for 2 hours at our events. So this was one of the biggest challenges for us. And so hopefully we can help you with that when it comes to STEM content. But we found that to be a big surprise when we started this. So speaking of getting started, our team has been involved in doing family engagement for about 15 years. This all started at a conference. So professional development is always key to all of this. My team, some of my members of my team were out in Arizona, and we were invited by a local colleague to come see his family program. And we all thought, okay, yeah, we've seen family programs at NASA Goddard or in the Goddard area. We know what this will look like. We had expectations, and we got there, and it totally blew us out of the water. We didn't know what we were looking at, because we were used to people, parents would be standing back chatting. It wasn't quite the texting years, but they were always in the back kind of chatting and hanging out. Kids were doing activities. Parents were saying, good job, but not really paying a lot of attention at our events, at our old events. And we showed up in Arizona, and here, our colleagues' event, everyone was making dry ice comets, which was a really cool activity. And parents and kids and everyone else were on the ground, hands dirty, having a really great time. And we looked at each other and were like, this is the coolest thing we've ever seen. We want to do this. This is the family program we want to do. And so we talked to our colleague and we said, how can we get this idea back to NASA Goddard and bring NASA content into families' lives the same way? And so we actually worked with him. He was a partner with us for those first 3 or 4 years to get us off the ground. And we built a NASA whole family learning curriculum. So what came out of all of that is what we call NASA Family Science Night. Even though it can be done any time of the day, I always have slightly regretted that name, but we're stuck with it now. We initially developed 9 sessions, and we pilot tested them for 4 years at NASA Goddard, and then we took it nationwide for even more testing. So now it's been out there in the wild for about a decade. We're, of course, like I said earlier, using a super flexible definition of families. We were targeting middle schoolers because middle school is such a critical time in kids' lives, and when they make decisions about high school and college and careers, and they start losing interest in STEM. So we want to get them hooked while you can still get them hooked. I know that age keeps slipping downwards, so we typically think about ages 11 to 14. We really tried really hard to make this all ages, truly all ages. And our very first year of pilot testing, we said bring any age, and we literally had people with babies in their arms, everyone down to as young as possible. And we found that there's kind of a bottom end in ages where things really work. So below about 8 years old, they didn't have the focus or the concentration to sit still for 2 hours. A lot of the activities were really hard for them to understand. And if we tried to bring things down to that, say K2 kind of level, we found we were losing the older children and the adults who thought that this was too young for them. So we finally found a solution where we said, okay, it's at least one adult and one child ages 11 to 14, all other family members ages 8 and up. And we actually had the ability in our pilot events to have a separate area for younger children to do age appropriate activities. So families didn't have to worry about babysitting, or we weren't losing families that might stay home with a younger child. With the exception of those little tiny baby infant age children, we were able to have everyone either in the room with us as the family event, or they were at our separate area doing something cool that was age appropriate for them. And they did everything from film canister pop rockets. They would do coloring. They watched a lot of Magic School Bus. They got to do imagination play in our museums. So some of our partners have been able to do similar things, and we think it's a pretty good solution if you can do it. So there are really 4 basic principles in that curriculum. One of them is to enable both adults and children to work together in the process of science, not just learning about science, but actually doing science. And we want them to do it together the whole time. We're also, of course, trying to boost their communication and collaboration skills. That's kind of the professional development piece for the whole family, to get them sort of balancing their contributions everywhere and everyone's opinions get heard throughout the event. And then there's, of course, the parent or adult professional development piece that's really for them to learn how to learn together and to feel more confident and enabled to go home afterwards and do the science activities that they want to do at home together. And this includes, we're not even just talking about doing experiments or something, but maybe they want to watch NOVA and have a really good discussion afterwards, or they want to go out to the park and they want to collect leaves and they want to learn about them. This is hopefully equipping them with the tools to do even the simplest of activities together more comfortably and more collaboratively. And that's really where that continuity piece also comes in, because we want them to have those skills and we also want them to be excited and feel like I can do science. I am capable of doing science. And that's where we're sending them home with the science notebooks, and we even send them home with a bit of a little experiment that they can do at home later, which we'll go over in a bit. And we encourage them just to use their science notebooks every day and record their observations about things. So since we're working in the informal education realm, we wanted to make sure that every single session in the Family Science Night program stood alone if someone only came once. We know you can't rely on everyone coming every single time, but we also have designed them to build upon each other for people who come repeatedly. We've also tried to make sure that everything is directly connected with everyday life so that people can see relevance and understand, why am I learning this? Why should this be important to me? We also designed everything to encourage families to work together every step of the way. This was really one of the bigger challenges for us, to make sure that everyone had a role, everyone knew what their part was, and we built that specifically into every activity, every discussion, everything, to help the families work together continuously. We also encourage event staff in events like this to sort of serve as coaches. So going from table to table, helping families work out issues, building up their collaboration skills. When you see a family member not really participating, trying to kind of draw them out and get them involved and make them feel comfortable. And sometimes it takes a little time. We had some families that it took the better part of an event, or maybe more than one event, to really get things working smoothly. But this is really one of the biggest keys to continuity. If you send them home ready, they can keep working together. And so it's not even just about this event, it's really about real life, everyday life. And the final thing is, we actually specifically chose topics that we thought kids and adults would be interested in, but they weren't probably getting as much coverage during the school day. So I mentioned before that we work with scientists who study black holes and galaxies and exploding stars and all this really cool stuff, most of which isn't really making it into the elementary or middle or sometimes even high school classroom. And so we wanted to give them a chance to learn about those topics that they're really excited about in a really flexible, comfortable environment, and bring NASA to them where they are, and let them play where our scientists get to play. So these are the 9 sessions that came out of our initial development and pilot testing phase about a decade ago. We include a lot of process skills like classification or modeling or map making. There's an engineering design session that's about designing and testing solar cars. So they build a solar car and then they basically break it, rebuild it better, and see how they can keep improving upon it. We also have sessions that explore things like, why do we have seasons, or what would it take to go land on the moon and live on the moon? Why do we have eclipses? So we had, that one was big a few years ago with the 2017 eclipse, but we also are expecting a couple of additional North American solar eclipses in the next couple of years. So this would be something to look into, that you could engage families before, during, or after eclipses to explore, well, what does it take with the sun, the moon, and the earth to make these kind of crazy cool events? And under our NASA Space Science Education Consortium funding, we're actually not just able to bring this to you. We are revising our older sessions. Like I mentioned, they are all about a decade old. And so we're kind of dusting them off, getting our links up to date, putting them in a nicer format. And it's also funding us to develop new sessions. So we are looking at new topics. We have one underway about galaxies. We're working on one about astrobiology, which is the search for life and looking at life off of our own planet. So what kind of weird life could be out there? And so we are excited to offer these for pilot testing as they come out. We're always looking for partners to help us make them better and help inform what goes into them. So in a few minutes, we will actually do a virtual family science event together. So let me tell you about what goes into every session and what you should expect. If you were doing these, we like to do these with a table for every single family. So we had a visitor center room that could hold about 15 families. We'd put out 15 round tables. We liked rounds because they're nice, everyone sits around them, but they could be any shaped tables, but we recommend that there's a table per family if possible. We always start with an activity waiting for them on the table. We all know that whenever an event starts, it's kind of chaotic. There's paperwork and there's people that want to chat and they want to grab a snack and they want to, get settled and everything else. You have early comers, you have late comers. And so we were looking for something that was kind of an equalizer. So this is an activity that's here on the table. People can sit down when they're ready and work on it together without a lot of introduction. And it means that people might spend only a few minutes. Your early comers who were really concentrated might spend 15 minutes, but everyone gets a taste of this first activity and it gets everyone focused and kind of on topic for the evening. And then you can get started when everyone's settled in. After that, we usually start an opening discussion that has rules and expectations and kind of lets them know what they should be expecting for the event, much like I'm doing here. Every session has one or more sort of core activities. These are the ones that go into more depth about the thing they explored in that introductory session, and they're building understanding. And it's also really important to us to build in time for reflection and time for discussion so that they have time to take notes and they have time kind of to internalize what they have experienced or what they've done. And finally, every session has some sort of capstone activity. Sometimes it's a transfer of knowledge. It's a chance for them to, go and explore in more depth. It's a chance for them to experiment with what they've learned, tie it back into everyday life. So this is really what we hope will kind of bring it all together at the end of an event and help them leave feeling empowered and inspired and excited. So before we start our virtual family science night, if you have any questions about any of this, I encourage you to put them into the question submission tool, and we will take a look at those during the Q&A period after this. I just don't want you to forget the things you were wondering about here, about the program itself or about the research. So feel free to ask us those questions, and we will do our best to answer them. Okay, so we are going to hop right into a session. This is actually the first session of our program. It's called How Big, How Far, How Old, and it's focused on the really important, really simple, but really important scientific process skill of classification. So we might think about sorting things or ordering things or making sense of things. And this session has 3 activities, and we're going to go through all 3 of them. So like I said, we'd start with something on the tables. So we would start with what we call family science lab cases. And this is where you get your assignment for the event, for the first activity of the event. And like I said, this lets people get started right away without immediate help from us. We can come around, we can welcome them. And so this session would start with a bag of stuff on the table that looks like this picture. So the lab case says, your lab chief, Dr. Andromeda, has left a bag of stuff for you on your lab bench. For all she knows, these items seem unrelated, but she wants your team to make some sense out of them. Take some time to study each individual object and come up with a plan to sort, order, and/or classify them. Be sure to write all of your thoughts, notes, and decisions in your notebook. You can be sure Dr. Andromeda will want you to share your work with the rest of your lab, and your notes may come in handy. So for all of you at home following along today, if you have a pen and paper, please write down a couple of ways that you might sort these objects. And I'll give you a minute to think about this. We'd usually give families at least 5 to 10 minutes to brainstorm and try out a bunch of different ways. And we'd go around and we'd talk to them, we'd welcome them, we'd make sure they were on task, we'd answer their questions. Sadly, I can't do this for you today, but hopefully you're looking at these and thinking about how you could sort them. So I see someone has suggested man-made versus natural. That's a really common one people like to think about. Of course, it's kind of tricky because it depends on how you interpret the different items. Is the dinosaur representing a living creature, or is it representing a plastic dinosaur? So that's a fun one that we like to probe a little when people give answers like that. I see another natural and man-made. I tell you, that is like maybe number 1. Color is very popular. We do our best to give people consistent items. Admittedly, sometimes the dinosaurs are different colors. Shape, that's an excellent one. So these really are paralleling a lot of the ideas that we get from families when we do this activity, because we also get things like age, we get, they tell you, like, sometimes they like to do kind of a timeline where they're thinking about, old versus new, or how they fit together, that you'd have dirt and it might form rocks, and then the rocks are there and they got mined and it made copper and it made the pennies. So yeah, those are lots of ways that old and new, things that are in common. These are excellent. Thank you all so much for these really great suggestions. And yeah, these look a lot like what your families would say. So, so yeah, once we did this, we would share out and we would have everyone share at least one way they sorted the items in their bag. And sometimes we would do some probing to see what they were thinking about different things. And after our families have really tried out their ideas, in our discussion, we like to ask them a series of questions about whether this would be the only way to sort these items, or the best way, or the right way or wrong way. And of course, the answer is, with this particular activity, the sky's the limit. We could literally sort the stuff in the bag over and over and over. We could spend our whole night sorting this bag and never be finished looking at ways to sort them, ways to interpret the items themselves. But we want them to understand that when it comes to sorting, sometimes you are looking for the right way or the best way, and that means refining what you're looking for. So we really want to get them started with a super open-ended thing, which is sorting all of these items. But also there are lots of different interpretations. So our families like to get into discussions like, I mentioned, like, is the dinosaur a dinosaur? Is it a toy? Is it plastic? We play a little trick on them with the pennies, where we have tarnished a penny with a newer date and polished a penny with an older date. So the new penny is old and the old penny is new, and we like to get into discussions about whether that's meaningful or how it changes the way they sort things. So we're really looking for ways to have them compare these items and make decisions about them and what they think they mean, and then choose the way they would sort them as a result. We also want families to share some of the things that they sort in everyday life, because of course we're constantly sorting. So some of the things they often share about that are things like they sort their silverware, they sort their laundry, their toys, they sort their friends. Certainly adults and kids both sort people every day. But we really do the scientific skill of classification every day without thinking of it as a scientific skill. And I think, if nothing else, I want you and I want the families I teach to go home and think, yeah, sorting my socks is doing science. I am practicing the same skill that scientists use when I sort everyday items. Maybe not with quite as much detail and rigorousness, although some people's sock drawers, I've seen some pretty impressive things on Instagram. So yeah, we do this every day without even thinking about it. It doesn't have to be just in a scientific context. So why do we use this activity as an opening in our session? Well, we found this to be a really great warm-up, and it's an equalizer, of course, because you can be engaged for just a few minutes, or you could be engaged for quite a bit longer. It's also a very comfortable way to get started with the idea of classification. So there's really not a way to make mistakes or feel any pressure. We don't get our families too riled up with arguments. They're pretty agreeable during this one. So it's very comfortable. It's silly objects. It's a silly challenge. And they just get to see what works. They test the thing out. They try another thing. They do it for a while, and they see that it's just a really fun thing they can do. But secretly, of course, we're already making them do classification. We're making them practice the core idea from the event. And we're also starting to develop their family learning dynamics. So this also gives us as moderators a chance to walk around and introduce ourselves, and also, like I said, start teasing out participation and balancing what they're doing. So it gives us a really nice time to start our coaching in a sense. So at this point, like I said, we'd have an opening discussion, and we'd introduce our rules for the event. So we really strongly believe in setting expectations in any setting that we're presenting things, and letting them know not just what to expect, but what we expect of them. So we want them to work together. We want them to respect each other. We want them to be willing to make mistakes and express their ideas. And we also want them to have fun. And we have a little spiel we give with these rules, but this is really the fundamental thing, that these are the things that make it a good family learning event, where everyone can contribute and enjoy themselves and learn things and be comfortable. The biggest thing we're trying to set is the expectation that everyone should be an active participant and sharing their ideas, regardless of whether they're an adult or a child or what their age is or what their role is in the family. And this is really one of the biggest challenges that we're trying to overcome in a whole family learning event. You probably, if you were running one of these, would have already seen during the warm-up that you had at least one family where the parents were sitting back and letting their children kind of do the activity alone. And they'll often say that they don't want to get in the way, or they don't want to ruin it, or they don't want to steal it from their kids. And of course, we're trying to kind of bust that preconception that that's what these activities are for, and help them understand that they're a valued part of this as well, that we want them to participate in this. So from here, we would get up and talk about how we could sort a room full of people. And I know this activity is not incredibly realistic right now. I don't think thankfully, I haven't seen a room full of people in several months. But let's do a bit of a thought exercise here. I've got a picture on the slide from one of our Family Science Night events. This would have been about a dozen families, probably somewhere between 12 and 15 families, probably 30 something people. I don't even think they're all pictured. I think they're kind of wrapped around the room. We always kind of wrapped around a couple of walls here. And we had everyone stand up and we said, okay, how could we sort a room full of people? So my challenge to you here now is to give me in the Q&A chat a couple of ideas about how you might sort a room full of people if you were given this challenge. So I'll give you a few moments here. And just to reiterate, this would have been, if we were doing a Family Science Night event, adults and children ages 8 and up, from a bunch of different, in our community, it would be from a bunch of different communities in the area, and they'd all come to NASA Goddard for the night. So how would you sort a room full of people? So I see a suggestion of gender. That certainly is a way we can sort people. Age is another way we could sort people. I think I see another suggestion of age. Sock color, that's a good one. Sometimes we get shoe color, shirt color. I see where from, color of eyes, height. Yeah, these are all great suggestions. These are very similar to the suggestions we often get from our families. Life experiences, color of clothes. Okay, great. Thank you for these. So we get basically those kind of suggestions. We get, you know, appearance-based things. We get life-based things. We get things like number of siblings, how far they drove today. Some of these are things we can see. These are visible criteria. Some of them are invisible. So I can see someone's height or shirt color, but I can't probably see how many siblings they have or just look at them and know how far they drove to get here today. Some of these produce a line. So we're talking about something like height. We might make kind of a line. I think actually the picture here is probably height. That's almost always one of the first things that we choose. But some of them might make us clump together in small groups. So if we said shirt color or we said eye color, we might get some clumps of people around common, common outcomes. The other thing here is that some of these criteria, of course, some of these ideas are sensitive. So they wouldn't be comfortable for us to get up and sort by them. Like weight comes up a fair amount, age I saw come up a few times here, or also things like race or gender or religion or politics. These would all be uncomfortable. These would be sensitive things. But when we solicit ideas like we just did in the chat, we really don't want to criticize people for suggesting something sensitive, because after all, these are ways we could, and frankly, kind of sadly in real life, often do sort people. And so when it comes to asking how could we classify people, even these sensitive sorting ideas are technically correct. That said, when we're actually going to try them out, which is what we would do next if we were all in person, we're the moderators. So we get to choose what we're actually going to try. And that means we can be super careful not to choose those things that will make people uncomfortable. So even if someone suggests race or they suggest age or they suggest birth, gender or something else, You can either turn it to something. So I often turn age to birth date. So you don't have to give me a year, but give me August 29th. And that's a much more comfortable thing than if I have to add the extra thing there at the end. I also like to choose things that some of them are visible, some of them are invisible, some of them make lines, some of them make clumps of people. And I like to try at least 3 or 4 of these, and we get to choose what they are. So we just sort and resort ourselves and see what happens. So this activity usually moves pretty fast, but people also find it kind of like an icebreaker where they get to interact with other families. It's actually a rarity in Family Science Night that they get to be so immersed with other families. We actually like to keep them very intentionally at their table working with their family, but we also know that they're intensely curious about the people at the other tables. They want to hang out, they want to chat, and this lets them kind of have an icebreaker with those other folks. So we have kind of the same discussion with this activity that we had with the first one, asking about the only way or the best way or the right way to sort people. And again, we could do this activity all day, and there are so many different ways we could sort people, and we like to talk about what we could learn from sorting people in lots of different ways. So if I sorted people by height, what could I learn from sorting people by height? Oh, well, gosh, I could look at what sort of the average or the median height was. I could see if height had something to do with some other criteria. If we sorted a couple different ways, we could compare them and see if height had something to do with how far you drove. Probably not, but let's test it out. So you can kind of play with this and learn a lot with them, and also see when it comes to the question of, is there the wrong way or the best way, those kind of questions. This is the place where things start sometimes to not work as well as you'd thought. So you come up with a question like, can we sort ourselves by glasses versus no glasses? That's a popular one for some reason. And it all seems straightforward until people start asking questions like, well, I only wear reading glasses. So are they glasses or are they no glasses? Well, it depends. Or I wear contact lenses personally. So where would I stand on glasses versus no glasses? And so it's kind of fun to do some of those that don't work perfectly. So you have a chance to discuss, what you can do with them or how you could improve upon them. Shirt color is one that immediately we say it and we start doing it. And then someone goes, well, I've got stripes or I've got flowers. So where do I go in this sort? And so it's really fun in a sense. This is where that being willing to make mistakes. I don't even think those are quite mistakes, but they're things that didn't work out quite like you'd expected. And you actually can learn a lot from doing something that didn't work perfectly. So we do this activity with families as the next thing to continue to build their sorting skills and apply them in some different way. So they started out by sorting the stuff in the bags, and now they're actually applying that to something else. And a little higher stakes because everyone else is seeing it and we're discussing it as a large group. So there's a little more pressure. Still very little pressure, still pretty silly, pretty fun, and comfortable. And it also gets them up and moving. So we like to find ways during our events to get them up and stretching and moving, because we did these on Thursday nights from 6 to 8 p.m. And typically this would be like 6:30 to 7, and they're already getting that like post-dinner slump. So we wanted to give them a chance to get up and wiggle a little bit. So finally, in the last activity of our session, we would actually apply these sorting skills to a set of cards that represent objects on Earth and objects in space. And this is where, if you have a piece of paper handy, please write down the names of these cards. So we've got Jupiter, the pyramids. This is some pyramids in Egypt. I get asked which ones. I sadly have not been to Egypt, but this is a stock image of some pyramids. We've got the sun. We've got the Hubble Space Telescope, which has been up for 30 years now, observing amazing things in the sky. We've got the Whirlpool Galaxy, which is a not too far away galaxy, but one of our other big spirals, like the Milky Way. We've got New York City. I believe that's somewhere in Manhattan. We've got the Hubble Galaxies, which is an image taken by the Hubble Space Telescope. You've got a ladybug, the moon, the Earth, the Eagle Nebula, which is basically a baby star nursery. There are baby stars growing up in those pillars of gas and dust. And finally, a dinosaur. I get asked, what dinosaur is this? I don't know. I think it's actually maybe an animatronic dinosaur from a park, but again, we got stock images, so I don't know. So I'd like you to imagine sorting these cards from smallest to largest, however you interpret that. And I'm going to give you about 2 minutes to think about that and to write down some notes about how you would sort these cards from smallest to largest. So as you're working on this, the advice we usually give our families, of course, we'd be walking around and talking to the families at our events while they were doing this. And one of our biggest pieces of advice, if they were getting stuck, would be to just take a couple of these items and compare them. We know some of the objects on these cards are familiar and others are less familiar. And so there might be ones that are easy to think about and ones that are hard. And so sometimes instead of looking at 12 cards here, if you just look at 2 cards, it might actually help you make some decisions, and then you just compare a different 2 cards. The other thing we encourage them, if they're getting stuck, is to think about other ways of thinking about the items or other ways of thinking about the question of size itself. There actually are multiple ways to interpret this, which we'll talk about in a few, and so sometimes that helps them get unstuck as well. So at this point, if you have written down a way you would sort these cards by size, I would love for you to put in the chat which card you would pick for the smallest and which card you would pick for the largest. And if you could just put like smallest one, comma, largest one, or smallest / largest one. But if you could give me which one you'd make the smallest and which one you'd make the largest. This is often a way we share out if we're going to go through these. The other thing we sometimes do if we're sharing these out is we actually have a giant set of sorting cards. So we get 12 volunteers to come up, usually about 1 per family, and we actually have one of the families sort the giant cards. And this is a way for everyone to see someone else's sort without it just kind of being something that gets rattled off in words or without having to have it held up from someone's table. And so these are different ways you can share this information, and we have some of those ideas in the session. So yeah, what did you pick as your smallest and what did you pick as your largest? Okay, so someone here has said smallest for them was Ladybug and largest was Hubble Galaxies. Okay, that's a popular one. I know when we get to big things in space, we're often talking about stuff that's less familiar. So obviously those Hubble galaxies are probably not that familiar. I see a lot of ditto, ditto. Okay, so yeah, if you were thinking about the absolute real life size, if we could literally get out a measuring tape and measure every single one of these items as they are in real life, then we would be talking about the Ladybug being the smallest, probably being like less than a 1/4 inch long. And those Hubble galaxies are actually thousands of galaxies, which are each themselves hundreds of thousands of light years across. That's trillions and trillions of miles there that we're looking at in one picture. So those really would be, if we could take a measuring tape, a really crazy measuring tape, those would be your smallest and largest. My other question would be, were any of the cards tricky to sort by size? And this is really something for you to think about yourself. Which were the ones that really tripped you up? Because like I mentioned, you've got some really unfamiliar objects like the Eagle Nebula and the Whirlpool Galaxy, the Hubble galaxies. And what we've actually done for ourselves and for you as moderators is we have a cheat sheet to help you answer questions about what these objects are. We've carefully worded these descriptions so you're not going to give away any answers that might make the activity less fun. So for example, none of the descriptions mention their size, because otherwise it's way too easy to be like, oh yeah, the Whirlpool Galaxy, that's a really big, crap, I've given away the answer there. So we've tried to help you explain what the objects are without giving away any of their secrets. But it's also really okay if participants don't know a lot about some of these objects. This is really an opportunity for them to practice classification. It's not an astronomy test. And so we mostly want them to think about the relationships between items. Which is bigger, a planet or a star? Which is bigger, a star or a galaxy? Which is bigger, one galaxy or this whole field of galaxies? There must be hundreds or thousands here. And so it's really about thinking about the relationships between things and the hierarchy of things. The other thing that's always interesting to think about is there are multiple ways that you could interpret the idea of size itself. So this could be, all of them are technically correct. This could be the actual size of the object in real life, which would make the giant field of Hubble galaxies the largest thing. Or it could be the size of the picture itself, which one of those little tiny Hubble galaxies might be the smallest thing on any card. So sometimes people will say, oh no, I made the Hubble galaxies the smallest because I was talking about the size in the picture. Or maybe you're thinking about a parent size, which is the size from your perspective or where you're standing, which would mean that if I put a ladybug right up in front of my eye, it would be huge. And if I saw a ladybug on my lawn, it would be really tiny. And there are other ways people interpret size. So this is something we also invite people to play around with when they're doing this activity, so that they're also thinking about the meaning of these words themselves and how they can play with that. So it's also fun to think about the objects on the cards. Are you looking at New York City as the whole city, or just Manhattan, just the block, just the building? Is it one pyramid? Is it all of the pyramids? What dinosaur is that? Like I said, everyone wants to know, and my answer is a dinosaur. I don't know which one. And all of this is considered divergent modes of thinking. So this is ways for people to approach a problem and solve a problem by thinking about it in lots of different ways. And from our perspective, we will accept nearly any approach or any answer if it has a thought process behind it. So if someone took the cards and threw them all on the table randomly, that wouldn't be a valid way for us to sort them. But if they've put some sort of interpretive process, some sort of thought process into doing this, we accept that as the practicing of the skill of classification, even if it's not the way we expected them to do it. So the first time someone gave me one of these and they said, oh, I did it by the size of the object on the card, there was a moment where I was like, hey, wait, that's way too easy. And then I thought, well, but wait, they're still doing classification. They're still practicing this skill. So they still got what they should out of the lesson, which, like I said, wasn't an astronomy exam. It was really about testing their classification skills and also doing it comfortably. And we're really trying to keep all of this really low stress. So if we did this with families after sorting by size, we would also sort the cards by distance. So how far they are, which of course would depend on where you start. So some people start from right where they are in that room, but other people will say, I'm going to start sorting by distance from a completely different spot, which might change the order that they might go in. And we finally sort them. The hardest one is actually by age. And that can be however, again, they interpret those ideas and how they interpret those cards. When it comes to doing age, which can be quite difficult because we often don't know how many thousands or millions or billions of years something might be alive in the universe. Sometimes people like to approach it by age of when the photo was taken, or when humans discovered the object, or something else. So again, divergent modes of thinking and lots of different ways of thinking about the same thing, which is a great way to do problem solving and classification. So this is the capstone activity for that first session that we took you through, because it really builds on what they've already done. And it also drives home, again, the point of divergent modes of thinking and problem solving and being really creative in your approaches if you're getting stuck. And we've really made it a little harder with each activity, but this one, we've also tried to give them a bit of an out if it gets a little too hard. We don't want them to leave feeling frustrated. We want them to leave feeling empowered. This is also the activity, if you notice, that adds the space science or the STEM NASA angle to things. So it takes the thing they've been developing in sort of general sense and makes them something that's astronomical, that's STEM based. And we don't expect them to leave with a ton of astronomy knowledge, but hopefully it's going to help them build a few new understandings about size and scale and what's out there and how they fit together. If they walked away with the idea that a star is smaller than a galaxy, or a galaxy contains a whole bunch of stars, from an astronomy education perspective, that alone is a really great thing for them to have learned. If they just walk away with a couple of new, very fundamental understandings about the universe and how it fits together and how it works. And since classification is a real life skill that we use every day, even when we're sorting socks and things, we're also hoping they'll kind of look at what they do every day a little bit differently after attending a family science night. So I imagine I have made some number of hundreds of adults and children start thinking about the silverware drawer a little more scientifically, a little differently, but hopefully it makes them feel like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing science right now. I'm very capable of doing science. So at this point, you have actually experienced the whole event. If you were one of our attendees, we would also send you home with a take-home activity. This is also something we have as a printable that you can download and print and use yourself. And this is something for them to try out after the event. Especially if they're a recurring family, they might try it out between months that they see you. And we call them kitchen science. They're something that uses very basic household supplies, hopefully things that they have. So the one here on the slide actually builds a cool little water pump out of nothing but a straw, a skewer, and a little bit of tape and some water, of course. And so what we like these for, first of all, is just to give them an easy way to do a little more science. But they also were actually part of our evaluation strategy when we were running these events, because we wanted to see if they did these between our events, and if we could measure any sort of increases in how much science they were doing outside of events. And so we would actually make a spot in every session to ask our returning families if they would like to share the activity that they did since last month. And we gave them a sticker or a little prize, or entered them in a raffle or something if they did that. And so it was a little reward. And we found that a lot of our families did these activities and shared their ideas, shared pictures, shared notes and data of how they did these things. So you've now seen the whole 2-hour event. This would be if it were in person, a 2-hour event. We did it sped up, we did it virtually, but hopefully you've gotten a taste of the types of activities that we build into this. And again, if you have any questions about any of this, if you put them into the Q&A submission tool, we will try to address them during the Q&A period. I just want to make sure we catch anything you're thinking about or wondering about. So my wrap up here is especially about some of our lessons learned, what our outcomes were, things like that. Hopefully things that even if you didn't implement our program exactly might be helpful to you. Certainly sometimes there are things that we learned through sometimes painful trial and error. So one of the things was that we tried to make everything we did as hands-on and exploratory as possible. So not a lot of lectures, not a lot of presentations, not a lot of demos. And this really serves two things. One is, of course, that those things are boring. People like to do, they don't like to listen. In fact, people are not that great at listening. And also, it was the most stressful part of any event for our team was the lecturing, presenting, demoing part of things. The low stress part is where they're at their tables doing cool activities and we just come by and talk to them. So we tried to maximize the part that they enjoyed more and we enjoyed more in all of our sessions. And the activity that you're seeing here on this slide is actually from our modeling and map making session. So they're actually building a scale model of the solar system, which first we had them do based on their own preconceived notions of size, but then afterwards we have them put that Play-Doh back together and now do it actually to scale, which usually blows their mind because they probably know things like Pluto is tiny and Jupiter's huge, but they don't realize how tiny and how huge. And so here they are tracing, this might be the full scale model, the final scale model that we built with our instructions. But this is a fun one and everyone likes working with Play-Doh. Another thing we learned was that we had to make our activities and our event environment encourage participation for everyone working together as a family. So that was the round tables, having them all sit together as a family. That's having a priority on in-family work and in-family discussion. So even when we have a big group activity, like getting them to get up and sort a whole room full of people, we actually have them discuss before and after and reflect after as a family at their table so that it's still a family-oriented activity, even if they got up and moved around the room. And this is also where the challenges start coming in, of especially if you have either adults that don't feel like they want to or should participate. Sometimes you have children that dominate too, so I shouldn't pick on the adults here, but you're looking for balanced contributions and equitable contributions. And it sometimes helps to give roles. So we learned to say things like one member of your family should be the note taker, and one member of your family should be the reporter that shares out, and have one member of your family come over here and do this. And that helped everyone feel like they had a reason to be part of things. We found our families were typically pretty predictably about 2 to 4 or 2 to 5 people. We did occasionally have an outlier. We had a 12-person, I believe, family one time, and that challenged us on things like making sure everyone felt like a part of things, and even just things like having a table big enough for that family. We did pull out, I think, a big rectangle that month for them, but we were looking for ways to make sure that everyone's contributions felt valued and felt like they were, contributing. A few other things we learned. One of them, of course, is that people learn differently, and adults often approach things differently than children do. And so we wanted to build things into our sessions that would appeal to different learning styles. You've got folks that are visual or auditory or physical or social learners. So we try to mix it up and have ones that address different learning styles. We also like to keep things really open-ended, especially this has to do with the low stress, high comfort level of things. There's no test at the end of this. You don't have to finish everything. And in particular, we tried to make the capstone or those last activities be really flexible so that you do as much as you can, or they could do more at home, and they're not going to feel like they just got cut off or they were racing to finish them. We also, like I said, try to build in structured time for that in-family discussion and reflection so they have a chance to internalize it and really feel like they've learned it. And finally, I think I mentioned a bit of this before, we considered our event staff and our volunteers to really be more than moderators. We were really coaches. We were going table to table, we're helping families work together, we're teasing out that balance in their participation, we're making sure everyone's on task, we're answering their questions. And it was our goal during our events to have at least one moderator or volunteer or whatever you want to have, your event staff, visit each family during each activity. And if that sounds like a lot of people time, it really is. We had, with our 15-ish families per event, we would have 2 moderators, so 2 people who were presenting the session, and at least a couple of other folks. Sometimes they were NASA education staff, sometimes they were local high school volunteers, sometimes they were our scientists who were colleagues, and we had them going around and helping families as much as they needed. So we typically had, with 15 families, which might be as many as 50 people, we had at least 4, but sometimes more people on the ground helping us run this program. And I know that's a lot. We really feel like it's important to have enough people that the families can be, you can interact with them, they feel welcome, they feel comfortable, and that you're really helping them with that coaching piece. That's really the hugest thing to us, is helping them leave with new skills, new confidence, able to collaborate, and hopefully they had a lot of fun. That's one of our big ones too. And one of the really important things to us that I've alluded to before is that we wanted to make sure our families understood why it was useful for them to learn the things they were learning in the event. It wasn't just that NASA wanted them to learn this, it was also how it applied to their everyday lives. And anytime I'm working with STEM content, I like to think about, why should anyone care about this? So if I'm thinking about black holes, they're cool, but why should I care about this? They're trillions of miles away. There's not one anywhere near here. So why do I care? And our scientists care because it's what they do for work, but our families sometimes don't feel like they care about science that much. And so we're trying to draw connections to everyday life to help them understand that they're already working with scientific ideas, that they're capable of doing science, and that their sorting laundry is doing science. That I think is really fun to do. This is also really about building confidence. And a lot of people don't think that they're capable of doing science, or they say they can't do science, or I've never done science. And we want them to understand that they can, and they already do science. And I'm very careful here to say doing science and not being a scientist. Sometimes we like to say anyone can be a scientist, which is also true, but this is not really here at these events. It's not about trying to get people into science or STEM careers. It's about helping them appreciate science in their everyday lives and feel more confident doing it, whether or not they go into science. So I love having a generation of people in every possible career, artists and teachers and chefs and mechanics and everyone else, who can still do science, even if they themselves don't become a scientist. We really need a population that is science literate and appreciates STEM. That's one of my biggest goals in all of my teaching, is to make our population more science friendly and science literate. So in our pilot testing, we partnered with the Rochester Institute of Technology to do a very rigorous evaluation. We did surveys before and after every single event, an informational survey up front, and a final survey to see what they thought. We had focus groups during the summers. We even sometimes had observers who either came in person or watched videos to watch how families were working together as a family. If you'd like to see any of our reports or adapt any of our evaluation tools for what you're doing, we're always happy to share, so just get in touch with us. And the outcomes of these evaluations were really wonderful. They showed that families were working together. They were learning new things. They were doing more science outside of our events, and not just the kitchen science activities we sent them home with, but they also could tell us about other science they were doing. And sometimes it took a little bit of time to tease out of them what they were doing. They'd say, well, I didn't have time to do science because we were just in the Lego Robotics Challenge and we went to the Science Museum and we did our science fair project. And they didn't immediately recognize that that was doing science. So we also had a little side trip of training them to see how much science they were really already doing in everyday life, even if they didn't recognize it. These numbers really met all of the objectives that we had set at the start of development. So like I said, we were thrilled with them. And we also were really thrilled with our return rate. The first time a family came to one of our events, it was kind of 50-50 whether they came back. And they clearly were trying to decide if this was the program for them. But once we had a family come twice, they were clearly hooked. And then they started coming back regularly. And obviously, with this being an informal education program, with this being a weekday night program, we did have a fair amount of families that it was soccer season now, so they were busy now, or the school play started up, or whatever it was. So we lost people and gained people also, depending on those types of things. We saw a lot of interest from our returning families that got, like I said, they got hooked. So here's what we have to offer for you. Each session has a suite of free downloadable digital files that should have everything that you need to run a session, besides the materials that you would buy. So we'll tell you what you need to buy. Everything that we can have for download is free. And this will give you background info, all the activity instructions, shopping lists, handouts. We have guides through all of the discussions, so you can see what types of questions to ask, what types of answers to expect. And we also include some adaptations and extensions. So maybe if your space isn't exactly like our space was, here's how you can handle a change in your space, or you have to change your materials a little bit. We've done our best to kind of cover some of the ways you might change the session a little bit to meet your needs. As I mentioned, our current funding has given us a chance to go through all of our old sessions, which are now 10 to 15 years old, and kind of dust them off. So we are working our way through session by session. And getting them into a new format and getting them all cleaned up. So we're also making a new website as part of this. So we don't have a cool NASA Family Science Night shiny website yet, but we do have a Google Drive where we're keeping all of our files. And so if you get in touch with us after this, we will send you a link to that Google Drive or to our website once that's up and running. And so that's where we'll have all of those files for you. Also, our team's job, besides developing these curricula and doing these trainings like this, is also to be your tech support. So we're happy to chat with you anytime about what we have to offer, about whether it's right for you or how to make it fit for your needs. We can help you pick sessions, or if you're starting to work on a session, you'd like to run a session, we can kind of help you through questions about the materials or preparation, or if you'd like to make an adaptation, you can ask, have you tried this? Did it work? Have you ever done this before? And so a lot of times we get our best ideas from folks like you in terms of someone tries something out or someone makes an adaptation, they tell us about it and we go, ooh, that's really good. And we work it back in to help other people as well. So we always appreciate your questions and your feedback and being your tech support. So up on screen now is what one of our sessions looks like in its shiny new format. So these are very organized. We hope that they're more useful. We used to just kind of have Word documents that we'd made PDFs out of, and now they're in a very standardized format where you know where to expect to find all of your objectives and concepts and shopping lists and timing and everything else. This is the first page of the session that you tried out, our session 1 about classification. And about half of our sessions are in this format now. We're working with a designer we have a teensy bit of her time, and she's working session by session with us to get everything cleaned up and looking like this. We also, of course, offer you all of the printable resources to download and print. So these are the printables from session 1. So you see the Family Science Lab case, the photos that were in the sorting bag, the sorting cards, and also the kitchen science activity. And these are all just downloadable, and you just print them and you're ready to go. And on the subject of materials, I just wanted to talk for a minute about this. We have aimed to make every session's materials as low cost and easy to find as possible. Many of our sessions use super simple, super easy to find things like craft supplies or office supplies or Play-Doh or rice and beans. We've also been on a very limited budget for quite a number of years, so it's taught us to be very frugal. You can always look for donations from the community, and also you can reuse a lot of things between sessions. There is one session that relies on kind of a fancy thing, and that is the solar car session I talked about quite a bit earlier now. So you need to purchase a solar car kit for each family, which is about $20 a family. So that's our expensive session that doesn't just use Play-Doh and rice and beans. But that said, we've also tried to make our materials as reusable as possible. And our shopping lists actually break down which things are reusable and which things are not. And with the solar cars, we actually did not send families home with those solar cars. When we looked into it, it didn't seem like they'd really get as much use of them at home. So we hung on to them. We'd take them back apart after they left, so they didn't feel bad that we immediately broke the thing they made. And then we put them back in the kit. We made any repairs or replacements we needed to do. And we used those kits for years after years. In fact, I still have several fully functional solar car kits that we bought in 2010, 2008, somewhere like that. And they're still in great shape. So we use them a whole bunch of times. And that one $20 per kit investment that we were able to make over a decade ago, we still are using those same solar cars. But other sessions are much cheaper, and you can talk to us if you have any questions about what goes into each session. It's actually pretty hard to come up with an exact budget for how much the program costs, because it depends a lot on how many families, what you already have, what you're going to give them versus what you're going to make reusable, etc. But we'll do our best to help you figure out what it would cost and which sessions might be a good fit for your budget and your space and everything else. Session guides also give you preparation information, so we hopefully have given you everything you need to know so that you can get the right things put together in the right little kits for each table. You can make that bag full of weird stuff for Dr. Andromeda's lab case there. So we try to give you all the information you need for that as well. So I know I've been talking a lot about a curriculum for in-person learning, which isn't something that a lot of us can do right now, unfortunately. But I also wanted to tell you about something that we're trying out for distance learning during the pandemic. So we are partnering with a local Maryland school system to do something that we're calling NASA Family Science Night at Home, which takes our original in-person sessions and adapts them to be used on a platform like Zoom or Teams or WebEx or something else. And for the pilot, we're actually providing little kits of materials to each family. So they pick up a bin at their local school and return it after the event. And then they just join us for 1 2-hour Zoom event where we take them through all of the activities and we do Q&As with them and we give them some goodies, give them some science background, etc. And we're actually testing out our 4th session this month, which is about the life cycles of stars and the chemical elements, and basically how people are made of star stuff. So you're literally made of exploded stars that lived here billions of years ago. And we know this isn't a substitute for in-person learning at all. It has plenty of things it can't do. I can't go table to table. It drives me crazy. I watch them over Zoom and wish I could walk right in that room and say, here, let me help you. But we've tried to model these to still do a lot of in-family learning and to help them work together as a family. And it's really showing. Parents are calling it kind of a thing that fills a gap. I think they feel like either they have to find the activities themselves normally, or they're trying to help their kids with schoolwork, and we're filling a gap where they just get handed something and they get to play for 2 hours once a month. It's very low effort for the parents, which I think they really appreciate. The really interesting thing for us about this has been that we weren't sure what this would be like when we started this development work a few months ago, but we've been able to adapt most of our NASA Family Science Night in-person sessions without making a lot of really radical changes to them. So we weren't sure right up front if we would have to make a lot of substitutions or pull out activities or add new things. For example, in the first session that you just tried out about classification, the only major change we made was instead of doing the second activity about sorting people, in the at-home version, it's about sorting your favorite movies. And so we give them a slightly different twist to look at a population of things and try to sort them. So for the most part, for activities like the ones you saw today, we're able to give them instructions. They've got the materials from our little bins. We set a timer, we let them work, and they come back for discussion. There are a couple of sessions that we've determined we just can't do distance learning wise. So for example, our session about seasons has 2 big group activities where we don't know how to adapt them to be at home with just a few people. But we're planning to adapt and try out at least 7 of our sessions over the coming months. And we're happy to share them once we've run them once, we're happy to share them with anyone else who would like to pilot test them and help us make them better during the pandemic. The main challenges we've really faced with this, by the way, like I said, they weren't really in the adaptation part of things. They were technology. I think they're the same problems that everyone is facing with distance learning. So sometimes families can't get connected. We know we're losing the families that don't have internet access, which is heartbreaking. And we're working with a rural community where not everyone does have reliable internet access. Sometimes our internet goes awry. Last Friday night, Christina's internet went down mid-session and I just had to slip in, take over, and run the last 20 minutes for her, which is a reason we have co-moderators on our at-home ones as well, because that gives us 2 separate internet connections and 2 people with the PowerPoint ready to go. The other challenge we're facing is really about materials distribution. So like I said, Christina is distributing these kits to families in that community, but they're very busy. It's hard for them sometimes to drop things off and pick things up on time. And I know these things are a challenge everywhere. So, you know, we can let you know what we've learned. We're also curious to know how any of you are resolving some of these sort of logistical issues with distance learning. Our team is very new to distance learning, whether it's our programs or our professional development opportunities. We're very in-person people. So at this point, yeah, we're looking for people to help us with pilot testing. We could send you the lesson plans and materials list and handouts and PowerPoint slides and everything else for you to run it in your community. And you could do kits like we do with the materials, or you could ship them, or you could you could actually give your families a shopping list and ask them to purchase them. We're not sure that that's going to work as well, because I don't know how many people would be able to get things right now. But we feel like with our sessions, one of the key things is for people to have the materials in hand. Mini sessions, they may not be fancy things, but they're still specialized things. So I don't think everyone just has 3 pounds of same color Play-Doh sitting around in their house already. And so, you know, it's hard to do some of those activities without the right things or enough things. We're also happy to work with you again beforehand. If you want to do this with us, you know, let us be your tech support. Let us do some professional development for you, some training for you, so that you feel confident and prepared and we answer all of your questions in advance. So by early 2021, we should have all 7 of our sessions ready to go. But even right now, if you got in touch, we could share the first 4 that we've already pilot tested here locally. So yeah, we would love to hear from you if you're interested in pilot testing, or if you want to know more about what we have to offer. We're always interested in your feedback and your ideas. We're also always interested in topics that you would like to see in family programming. So obviously we have a NASA angle. We think about what our scientist colleagues are currently doing, and that helps build out what we're thinking about. But we also want to know what you think would be a good fit, what you think families would be excited about, especially if it's something that they're not already getting to learn in the school day. So please share your ideas, and we'll see if we can put them in a future session. So my last thing before we move into Q&A is we actually have a session evaluation. So being NASA people, we work with scientists, we value data, and your feedback really helps us make virtual workshops and webinars like this better in the future. Like I said, we're still really new to this distance learning, virtual learning stuff too, and we want to know what you liked or what you'd like to see in the future, whether these resources that we offered today are helpful to you, what you would need to implement them. And you don't have to fill this out right this second, but please, you know, save the link or click on it and leave the window open so you can complete it later. And hopefully Sarah can get that pasted into the announcements. I also wanted to make sure I mentioned here right at the end that we're just happy to be your connection to NASA if you don't have one already. Even if it's not about the family learning programs we showed you today, our team and colleagues work on a variety of different projects at NASA with education. And so if we can help connect you with something or find you the right person or the right program, please drop us a line and we will do our best to make those connections. NASA is huge. We've got over a dozen centers across the country. There are hundreds of people doing hundreds, I don't know, thousands of different educational projects. So frankly, I sometimes learn more about NASA education from folks like you than I do from my colleagues. It's just too much to keep track of. But that's one of the reasons, if we can help you figure it all out, find the right thing, we're always happy to do that for you. So yeah, I think with that, we're ready to move over to the Q&A.
All right, fantastic. Thank you so much, Sarah. Let's get my slides up here, and then we can move into the Q&A. Again, thank you. I know your colleagues are in the background as well, so we thank also your team. But let's see here. Let me get to my question list. Thank you. A lot of the questions are already addressed, so I appreciate that. One question is, are your curriculum resources translated in other languages?
That is a great question. Unfortunately, the answer at this point is no. We're very interested in doing translation work. At NASA, we don't actually have an on-staff translator. So we've actually tried to get grant funding in the past to pursue this. But if you're interested in partnering with us on that, if we could find the right translation partner, that could be one way that we could move towards that.
Great, fantastic. And you know, who doesn't love ready-made activity plans, right? So this is really great that you all have everything packaged up, ready to go. I know you mentioned that everyone can also contact you for support, so that's fantastic. You mentioned a Google Drive link, so if you can send us that link as well, we'll make sure that we get that to everyone as we send out our post materials. That would be great.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Andy, are you seeing any other questions that I may be missing here? You did such a great job. I think you kind of answered everything.
Yeah, I think most of them were answered along the way.
Fantastic. All right, well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Sarah, again, to you and your team. Fantastic information. Again, tools for your toolbox. Please use this. Again, you can do it not only in person, but virtual as well. All right, so on that note, we're going to get ready and take a 10-minute break, and then I will come back with the closing. Thanks, everyone. So Sarah, it looks like we have a question that popped up in the Q&A box. It says, thanks for the session information and activities. For the pilot participants, what is the max number of participants/materials preferred for a session, especially having to provide materials that come from the NASA team?
Yeah, thank you, Dawn. Yeah, I actually replied to that it turns out privately, so I'm happy to share that with everyone. That's a great question. We actually think it's mostly a question of your venue, your staff, and your budget more than anything else. The printables are all scalable, so you can print as many as you want, but it's really going to come down to the question of how many people fit in your room, how much can you afford, and how many staff do you have to be able to deal with that number of people. So in our pilot, we chose 15 families, or about 50 people, or no more than 50 people, because that was what the room we had would hold, and we knew our staff had at least 4 people who could handle that. But we actually had a partner in Baltimore who took over an entire high school cafeteria and ran this program for about, I think, a semester with hundreds of people, and used high school volunteers to help him. And so he did something on a much larger scale because he had the capacity to do so.
Great. And also, as a reminder, in terms of buying the materials needed for the events or for the curriculum plans here, remember, I don't know how many of you all were online with us where Jill Curtis, she mentioned that Title IV Part A could possibly purchase materials with title funds. So please coordinate with your federal programs director. We have a copy of that session. It is available online by viewing our website, but please contact Title IV Part A for more information on purchasing materials for this activity. And we are back. All right, so I have about 7 minutes here, so let's go ahead and close this out. Again, big thank you to GPB and NASA. What a wealth of great information. We appreciate it so much. So as I emphasized last time, consider doing something new for your parent and family engagement program. Seize the moment, take full advantage, send your families on a virtual adventure this year. We are here to help support you, so please contact us at any time. For one, with our evaluation surveys, we had someone ask about virtual outreach, just the need for continual virtual outreach. So as a result of your feedback, our team will continue to offer these deep dive learning series for this year with guest speakers. So ultimately, we want to model this practice and send you all on a virtual adventure. So please be on the lookout for additional information. All right, and we had a question last time about the primary method with online trainings, and is this something that you all can do to hold those meetings? So I'm gonna let this slideshow play because it's gonna show you some ways in which you can offer primary as well as secondary methods for parent and family engagement. All right, so again, when you're sending out your invitations, you can provide the link. You can have guest speakers to join you. You can have an intro, closing. Of course, have your link to the recording, but all of this is great documentation for you to file for parent and family engagement. And of course, we are here if you have any questions. All right, coming soon, we have our new Family School Partnership community. It is now up and running, so we will provide you with that information soon. It's an opportunity for you all to network, collaborate, and support each other in the field. So additional details are forthcoming. And of course, you probably are familiar with all of our resources. So please contact us and like us on Facebook. Look at us on YouTube. We have our parent family engagement video channel that you can check out and look at other districts and schools and how they are implementing their work in parent and family engagement. Lastly, our evaluation link. Please let our presenters know how you enjoyed this wonderful session today. So if you would, please click on the link. This information is also available on our website as well, but we would love to hear from you. All right, and here's our contact information. Again, I mentioned our website. So if you go to our webpage, you can get all of the materials. Well, 3 days after, you can get all the materials for today, the PowerPoint, the recording, everything that you need. And lastly, thank you. Of course, you can follow the Georgia Department of Education and by visiting these links. Of course, we are educating Georgia's future. And here is our bit.ly link. All right, so that is it. Thank you so much for joining us. We have 3 minutes. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. All right. Oh, great. Thank you all so much. We have some wonderful feedback. Love the adventures. These sessions are amazing, so well prepared, engaging, and useful resources. Thank you so much for virtually supporting. Thank you so much for the virtual information. So thank you so very much. Yes, please let us know. Click that evaluation link. We'll love to hear from you. And on that note, everyone have a fantastic day. More information to come with our deep dive learning series.